and welcome to our webinar on next generation productivity gains in the warehouse with Lydia Voice. My name is Mariah Sandoval, and I'm the marketing coordinator at Barcodes. Today, you will learn how to increase the productivity, accuracy, and employee satisfaction in your distribution center with Lydia Voice, running on rugged multi-purpose Android devices. We are joined today by Chris Wappler, a senior account executive with focus on Lydia Voice solutions from EPG, to discuss Lydia Voice and how it can improve productivity in the warehouse. We do have a Q&A feature available on this webinar, so please feel free to send us any questions and we will address them towards the end as time allows. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Chris.
Thanks, Mariah. And yes, my name is Chris Wappler. I am with the Earhart Partner Group. And I thought I'd start off just giving you a little quick background about myself. I have 20 years experience in supply chain logistics solutions, which includes voice-directed solutions, which we're going to be talking about over the next few minutes, general AIDC solutions, including barcode, RFID, and those types of solutions, warehouse management software, as well as general DC process improvement. So with that in mind, let's just jump right into it. And the goal of this webinar today is really to give you some ideas and ways to protect your business, not only for just today, but in the future. And so we're going to cover the following topics over the next few minutes. I'm going to introduce you to EPG, Earhart Partner Group, in case you don't know who we are, and why you'd want to use voice in the warehouse or distribution center with Android devices, and specifically why Lydia Voice. I'll also talk about how you can get your own Lydia Voice demo so that you can play on your Android device and see how Lydia Voice works. And I'll talk a little bit about today's Android devices and using Lydia on those particular types of units. And then I'll cover some ways you can reduce your risk in introducing voice into your warehouse or distribution center and how you can get started today. And then I'll field some general questions that you might have. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and dive right in. So a little bit of information about EPG. We have over 1,200 customers globally, privately held and profitable with no debt. Over 600 employees. We do supply chain logistics software solutions, so we understand these are mission critical solutions and offer things like 24/7 customer support, different licensing models from SaaS to subscription to perpetual and managed services, and we are the second largest global voice logistics solution provider, and also partnered with Barcodes. And so, as many of you probably know, a few years ago, Microsoft announced the end of life of Windows CE embedded Windows mobile applications. And that date is rapidly approaching. It's actually coming up in about 5 weeks. And I'm sure many of you have either started to replace your older Windows CE handheld devices that are used for barcode applications in the distribution center, like receiving and order picking and shipping. And some of you have already started to move to Android, or you might be currently evaluating Android devices and looking to start to make that transition in 2020. And this actually creates a great opportunity for you to optimize workflows within your distribution center or warehouse. So let's talk a little bit about that and what I mean. So with Lydia Voice on an Android device, it can allow you to modernize your workflows so that you can get the maximum amount of productivity and accuracy versus just going from a Windows CE barcode scanner to an Android barcode scanner. So let's take a closer look at that and what I'm really talking about. So think about your own particular operation, your own warehouse, your own distribution center, and ask yourself this question: what does an additional second per pick cost your operation? And as you sit there, you might not know that specific answer today, but let's look at just an example, a very simple example. So let's say you had 35 order pickers. Let's say they were picking on average about 200 lines per hour, and you had about 1.5 picking shifts per day. Let's say your fully burdened labor rate was about $18 an hour, and your DC fulfilled orders 260 days out of the calendar year. So if you add all that up, it's a little bit surprising to think that that extra second per pick can cost you over $100,000 a year in productivity and efficiency. So how could we eliminate that second or potentially multiple seconds using something like voice and Android devices? So let's take a closer look at an order picking process where you're using a handheld mobile computer. So it doesn't matter what the brand or model is, but if you have folks who are in the warehouse today scanning products, scanning locations, and picking orders with that handheld barcode scanner, let's take a look very closely at that process. So typically they have to pick it up and look at the display to see the location. Then we'll put it down so that they could either drive to the location if they've got a forklift, or maybe they're pulling a pallet jack of some sort. So they free up their hands, they drive or move to the location, and then when they get to the location, they have to typically scan it, or perhaps they could be scanning the product, or they might be doing even both. So they have to pick up the device again, and they do the scan, and then they read the quantity they have to pick on the device. And again, they're going to free up their hands. So they may put it in a holster, they may sit it on a shelf, they may turn around and put it on their forklift, and then they'll start to perform the actual pick. Then they have to find the device and they have to remember where they put it. Sometimes they forget, they spend more time looking for it. Other times they're just reaching for it, they knock it, it hits the ground and it damages the device. But they grab the device, they confirm the quantity they pick, and then they have to read the screen again for the next location and repeat that whole process. When we look at voice and taking Lydia Voice to optimize that process, what we do is we actually compress those 9 steps to 5 steps to do a hands-free, eyes-free picking application or picking workflow. So let's examine how it's different. So with voice, instead of reading, I hear the location in my headset, and then my eyes are free, my hands are free to either drive my vehicle, pull my pallet jack to travel to that location. When I get there, instead of scanning, I will typically speak check digits. It could be a location check digit, or it could be an actual check digit on the product to either verify I'm in the right place and picking the right product, or I am picking the physical product itself that I want to. And then the system will say, pick the quantity, pick 5, for example. And so I start reaching into the bin and I'm picking 5. And it doesn't matter, it could be 5 cases, it could be 5 eaches. I could be putting it on a tote, I could be putting it into on a pallet or into a shipping container. And I will confirm the quantity I'm picking. So if I was told to pick 5, after I've picked 5, I'll say 5, okay. And at that point, as I'm completing the pick, I'm already hearing the next location. So not only do we compress the number of steps from 9 to 5 for order picking with voice, but it becomes more fluid. So as I'm putting the product on a pallet or into that tote, and I'm confirming the quantity by voice, I'm already hearing my next location and thinking about where I'm going. Where with that handheld barcode scanner, it's a start-stop process. I'm constantly starting, stopping, starting, stopping. So after I finish my pick with barcode scanner, I've got to find it, grab it, enter the number, and then see where I want to go. So voice becomes much more fluid. We compress those steps, and it results in productivity gains of 10 to 35%, or even potentially more, depending on how much interaction there is with that handheld device. And it can even provide better accuracy than barcode scanning because I'm focused at the pick face. I'm always looking at my work. I'm not turning to sit down my gun after I've done a scan. And it can also drastically increase the training time for getting a person productive compared to that handheld barcode scanner. So when we're doing this type of workflow optimization, between increased productivity and potentially increased accuracy, we can be looking at paybacks of 12 months or less. And so that's where, as you look at modernizing your hardware in the warehouse and moving from those old Windows CE device to Android devices, you can now also optimize that process with something like voice on that Android device. And voice provides a multitude of benefits besides the increased accuracy and productivity. Again, it takes about half the time to train a new employee how to do their job on voice compared to a handheld barcode scanner. It can result in reduced damaged equipment because I'm not always trying to pick up and put down a device. I'm wearing a device. It also is easier for me to do my job. I'm not trying to hold a device and pick big, bulky products. There's less chance for damaged product within the distribution center. Even increases worker safety because I'm not driving a vehicle around and then looking at the display to see where I'm supposed to go. I can simply say a voice command like location, and it'll speak the location to me. So it actually even creates a more safer environment because I'm more aware of my surroundings. And actually, through some studies that have been done, companies who have adopted voice technology, out of all the companies that have been surveyed, 81% of them say that they are very satisfied with their overall warehouse operation. The employees are more satisfied. The operational performance is better compared to those who are not using voice. So this is really something to consider as you start going through this migration from Windows CE to Android. So let's take a look more specifically about Lydia Voice. And Lydia provides the best voice recognition available in the industry today. It provides a much easier integration into your warehouse management system or your ERP, and it provides a much lower value. It's typically 30–35% less than other voice solutions out there. And so let's talk specifically about the voice recognition because that's a very key component with these solutions. Lydia uses a technology called deep neural networks. And deep neural networks is the latest in machine learning, artificial intelligence when it comes to voice recognition technology. And we're not the first to use this type of technology. Companies like Amazon and Google are using this today. And so we've taken this type of technology and we've developed it. It's our software that we've written, an encapsulated noise canceling capability, so it could be used in a distribution environment. And what's great about it is anybody can pick it up and use it immediately. You don't have to go through and do any types of voice training. Some of the voice systems out there today, you have to spend 30 to 45 to 60 minutes speaking words and numbers until it can build a profile to learn your voice. Lydia Voice lets you pick up your mobile computer, put on a headset, go out into the distribution center and start working immediately and being more productive. And if you wanted to try this for yourself, you can. If you've got an Android device, and I'm going to talk about some of the Android devices we support in a moment, but even if you have your own Android phone, maybe you have a Samsung phone, and we don't support phones in the warehouse because the Wi-Fi technology is not very good for roaming and dealing with some of the challenges of wireless network connectivity in a warehouse. But for demo purposes, for you to try it, it works very well. So just simply go to Google Play Store and search Lydia Voice Demo. And then you'll see the following screen appear on your Android device. And then you can download and install that application. And you can even pick the language that you want to run a demo in. So Lydia supports over 50 languages. So you can try it in English, Spanish, French, whatever you'd like. Our voice recognition is so good with Lydia, you don't even have to wear a headset, believe it or not. So you'll be able to just use your handheld Android device if it has a speaker and microphone, but we have something called VoiceWear that's a vest. It can be a little more comfortable to wear than a headset. And so you don't have to have that microphone right next to your mouth like you do with other voice solutions. So Lydia gives you the option of a headset or even a non-headset solution when you're working in the distribution center. And these are some of the devices that Lydia can support today and does support. So if you're, for example, a user of Zebra devices, these are all of their current devices that Lydia supports. And you can see many of the new Android devices out there, like the MC9300 and the TC7075, the TC52, the EC30. So if you have these devices or you're evaluating them, you can actually think about, okay, if I move to this platform, I have the ability to optimize my processes in my distribution center using voice. In addition to Zebra, we also support some Honeywell, Panasonic, and Datalogic devices, and you can see there's a wide variety of footprints, from handheld to more phone factor to even tablets. And what we also like to do is provide the opportunity to reduce your risk. And maybe many of you out there have thought about voice in your warehouse for many years. You've looked at it, you've done maybe a ROI analysis, but for whatever reason, you just felt like you didn't want to take the risk of implementing a voice solution because you're used to doing barcode or you're used to doing paper pick lists. Well, with EPG and barcodes, we want to reduce that risk, and we've got ways to do that for you. So we offer something called the Lydia Voice Prove It promotion, which is a 30-day pilot program that allows you to test drive Lydia Voice in your distribution center. For $9,500 plus travel expenses, we'll come into the distribution center and look at a workflow like maybe case picking or each picking, and we'll implement a Lydia Voice solution for you to test. So not only can you see how well the technology works on those Android devices evaluating or you've already purchased, but to also validate the payback analysis that either you've done in the past or perhaps we've done with you through this process. So Lydia Voice Prove It is a great way for you to eliminate that risk and find out that voice is going to not only work in your distribution center, but you're going to see maybe gains of 20, 30% productivity or even a reduction in errors. We also have a solution for people currently using voice called Coexist. So Lydia Voice Coexist allows us to duplicate your current voice workflows. So it doesn't matter whether you're using Honeywell's VocalX solution or Lucas Jennifer or Voxware. Our Coexist solution lets you run Lydia Voice side by side with your current system. So you can do an apples to apples comparison and see how the voice recognition's better, see how it performs on that new Android device that you're deploying, and see how it's going to provide even more benefits to your overall operation. So between Coexist and Prove It, these are ways that you can reduce risk for implementing voice to modernize your workflows inside the distribution center as you're looking at Android in your operation. So with that, I'm going to stop and see if there's any questions from the audience, and we'll go from there.
Thanks, Chris. It looks like we did have a couple questions come through. The first question is, what are other advantages of Lydia Voice's use of deep neural networks?
Sure, that's a great question. So one of the big advantages of Lydia Voice's deep neural network technology is it means the worker will be repeating less. Some of the older voice solutions out there, that older voice recognition technology, people tend to have to repeat themselves a lot. They'll have issues, they'll say a particular word or number, and it doesn't hear what they're saying, it doesn't recognize what they're saying, and they have to repeat themselves. So what happens is they lose productivity, or they even get frustrated. Sometimes you'll actually hear people talking louder because they think it just doesn't hear them, and while it hears them fine, it's just not recognizing what they say. So with Lydia Voice's deep neural network technology, it drastically reduces the amount of repeating that an order picker would do over the course of a shift. Not only is there less repeating, but with Lydia and this machine learning technology, it continues to learn how you speak and what you say. So it continues to get better over time, and it adapts to you. Even if you have a cold, maybe your voice has changed a little bit because of allergies or you've got a cold, it's able to learn and adapt on the fly. Whereas some of the older voice systems, if you have trouble with the recognition, you repeat yourself a lot, you have to go back and do that retraining process, and that can even mean more lost productivity.
Awesome, that sounds pretty cool, Chris. Okay, here's another question. How long does it take to implement Lydia Coexist solution?
So the good news is that for companies already running voice inside their warehouse or distribution center, a lot of the heavy lifting, a lot of the work has already been done. So we're able to work with a customer to fairly easily duplicate their current dialogue. The dialogue is what the system says to the user, and the user says back to the system in terms of data collection. So because that work has already been done and defined, we can actually duplicate that with our tool set. And then it allows us to easily connect into the customer's existing warehouse management system or ERP system the way their current voice system does, and do that comparison test. And depending on the type of workflow and the customer's operation, that can be as little as just a few weeks of time.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, so we have time for one more question. Can Lydia Voice Prove It and Lydia Coexist be combined?
And that's another good question. Absolutely. So Prove It can be done one of two ways. It can be for customers who've never used voice before, but they've thought about it or they're thinking about it now, and they want a low risk way to test or pilot voice in their distribution center. But customers already using voice can take our Coexist solution and our Lydia Voice Prove It pilot, and EPG and Barcodes can come in and let customers that are currently using a voice solution test Lydia Voice. So maybe you have an older Vocalex system or an older Lucas or Voxler system that needs upgraded, and you want to see what has changed since you implemented that system, and see if there's better technology or a better way to leverage your investment in Android devices, so you can combine Prove It and Coexist and be able to really reduce your risk in a short amount of time, see how well Lydia Voice works in your operation.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. Those are all the questions we have time for today. If you have any additional questions, please reach out to Raul Cepeda. And Chris, would you mind going to the last slide? And that is his contact information. His work number is 312-765-6881, and his email address is rcepeda@barcodesinc.com. Thank you again to Chris and to everyone who joined us today. I hope you have a great day.